Welcome to Hello Grow.
Number one growth podcast in the world.
Today we have Cole McWhorter, and stoked to have you on, man. The introduction for Cole: D1 baseball player in college. Then you went off to Columbia, where you had some work in between. Then you went to Columbia to get your MBA. You left Columbia to McKinsey after graduating with your MBA, and you became an engagement manager, which is M&A at McKinsey, which I'm excited to hear about. That sounds like a wild, wild ride. From McKinsey, you were recruited to Traeger to be their head of operations, and then were promoted to the general manager of Traeger Provisions, where you could, we'll let you go into explaining what that business was as well. Left Traeger Provisions to go start your own thing called Valere, which is a dental practice roll-up where you're buying these. You have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful kids, and I think you are who any aspiring entrepreneur, like, they would look at you like, man, if I can accomplish that or even half of that, I will have been massively successful. So the first question, just want to start off with, tell us what a roll-up is. How does it pencil? Why was it attractive to you? Like, what are the mechanics of a roll-up?
Yeah, so a roll-up, if you look across the country in certain industries, there are especially fragmented industries where you have a lot of companies that generally do the same things. Healthcare is a great example. There are dental offices all across the country, and they might differentiate in certain ways, but they are all providing very similar service. And you have companies that have realized that if you take these similar businesses and aggregate them together, you can create value. Both value from economies of scale, and that may be purchasing power, it may be a number of things in that regard, but also the valuation of a bundle of these like-for-like companies would be much higher, right, because of multiple arbitrage than it'd be if it was on its own.
Okay, just a quick pause. Multiple arbitrage. I think Carlos and I are going to understand what that means. But if somebody doesn't know what multiple arbitrage is, like, go through the very, very basics of the mechanics of how that actually turns into more value when you sell it after it's bundled.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to explain why it's a thing, but that may be a deeper philosophical economic conversation. But essentially, if you've got a business, and a business by itself is producing X amount of cash value, the market would say this business is worth some multiple on that profitability. Maybe it's 3 times, maybe it's 4 times. Multiple arbitrage is now you go and actually can grab a number of those businesses and you stack them together, and rather than have these incremental gains in multiple, you'll go from a 3 to a 4, and now suddenly you may be at a 9 or a 10 or an 11 or a 12. And so that is where you see this idea of strength in numbers. Portfolio, for whatever reason, or we know the reason, right? There's all this underlying value and this profitability, and a cluster that's all working together, you could even create more value. I think that's where people then could say, so let's take that from 3 to 4 for a single unit, and now it's part of a node. Maybe the thing's worth now 8 or 9, depending on how much EBITDA you've got, so on and so forth.
So walk us through what it would be like for an individual practice, what you could buy it for, and then what you could end up selling that practice for once it's bundled in with the entire group.
Yeah, so I would say an average practice, and there will be a lot of people listening to this that'll say, oh, but this year's different, right? Multiples are softening because of the economic, and which is true. Every year you see some of that, but on average, if you look over the past 10 years.
Just like any industry, right? Housing market, stock market, everything fluctuates.
You got it. There are seasons where multiples are hot and feel a bit more premium than the norm, and then others where maybe they're lagging. But in general, you're going to go grab a single practice that's, producing, maybe it's doing $1 million or $1.5 million in patient revenue, and somewhere $250,000 a year in earnings. That practice will go for anywhere from 3 times, 4 times, maybe 5 times if there's some other intangibles that are super attractive. So that's a single practice. But then, you start consolidating, and now your EBITDA goes from 200,000 to 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. And there are examples every day. Now you're going to really start getting close to double figures in multiple. And if you really start getting EBITDA up there and things are going, There have been, I mean, hundreds of deals that have gone for 12, 13, 14x.
Wow.
Is that because once it's part of a group of offices, one complements each other, or just makes it a safer investment if there's more businesses in there? Or what are the reasons why the multiple goes up?
Yeah, I mean, again, that is a very it's an interesting question, and I'm sure there's several answers. And in my opinion, when you've got an industry, like call it dentistry, I'd say it's safe, right? Even in a bad year, people are going to have cavities that need to be filled. They're gonna need to clean their teeth. So you have a very safe business that is consistently producing a bunch of cash. And now you stack a bunch of those safe businesses together that now are consistently producing a lot of very sticky cash, and that whole community is actually working together to even increase top line and margin expansion. A group like a private equity group or someone would come in and say, how much more could we streamline and scale? Like what is the full potential, the economies of scale with all this underlying cash that we could do better, probably better than a Cole McWhorter could.
It seems like you just move the fulcrum. So you have the fulcrum at one point and you only get a little bit if you're pulling a lever on one single practice. But once you have all of these combined, the fulcrum just shifted so far that you can pull that same lever, but get so much more value out of just pulling that one lever.
Yeah, I think that's right. The other thing too, which is just more kind of simple math, is it's really in some cases no different than, let's say you just had a regular non-tech kind of growth valuation oriented business, because those valuations are all over the place. But a sleepy, call it non-sexy business that if it by itself was to go from 200,000 in EBITDA to 5 million in EBITDA, that multiple would hike all by itself, for the mere fact of look at all the extra incremental value that's being created. So some of that is just, you've got to, instead of growing a single company, you're growing a portfolio, servicing hundreds of thousands of patients in hopefully a very high quality way, being run efficiently. And so there's a lot of, margin accretion. There's value there. So it's worth something. So
you could have written your ticket to go we tried to recruit you at Aspen. Far beyond what we would be able to pay.
You never called me back for a second interview.
Yes, that is not true.
Or it's bold if he went after you.
I'm sure I went after you for a fifth interview. And you said, no, enough is enough. But you could have gone and started your own thing from the ground up. You could have gone and been highly paid executive and equity shareholder at a bunch of different companies. You really got to be an entrepreneur at Traeger, where you had your own P&L, running your own business. Of all the different options that you had and opportunities, what made you attracted to this one? So I'd love to know the pros about this type of business model, and also some of the cons that have crept up, because I think people listen to a podcast like this and think, I immediately need to start that kind of business model because it's just rosy.
Oh, yeah. So I think to answer your question, I did have kind of these options. I could continue. I loved my time at McKinsey & Company. I loved my job. Loved my work. The problem is I was looking at partnership, and I was on the road Monday through Thursday every single week. And so there was kind of a personal, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? I did have options to kind of go into corporate America. One of the things, like every consultant, we were just talking about this earlier, is when you're just advising, there's a itch that you want to scratch that is, if I was actually on the hook for delivering, like, could I do it? Could I actually own a P&L and not just advise against a P&L? And I just had this like major, like, if I don't own something and this is all I do, or go work, I don't know, in corporate strategy somewhere where I still I want to feel what it's like to just be the ultimate person who's responsible. And part of the reason I felt that was I felt like during my career, from my baseball background maybe or whatever, I was like by nature a team guy. It was like, boss, whatever you need me to do, like raise my hand. And I was constantly doing it for other people. But there were certain times where I was pushed to kind of be all on my own. And it was kind of like, there was some trepidation there, but like I always actually like rose up and like knocked it out of the park. And so there was this part of me that was like, I could keep working for other people. I could keep advising and give really sound advice. My clients love me, but there will always be this, you were at your best when you were fully responsible, and you were at your most fulfilled when you kind of were proving to yourself that like, if the buck stops with me, like I've got a bunch of people that are dependent on me, and I can make good on the commitment I've made that we're creating something. And so anyway, that was ultimately why I was like, you know what, like I do want to build something, and I want to be fully responsible for it. And so it was like, if it's not now, it's never. And so I decided that was my leap of faith moment, I guess.
And you're masochistic because you needed that pain. You needed to be the guy, because there's not a road without pain. So
yeah,
why you could have started from ground up, you could have bought a pre-existing company. Why the specific business model?
Yeah. So what happened was, when I was at McKinsey and I was having this internal, man, I love my job, but like, am I going to do this forever? Now's the time to decide. It was my time at the firm. I was also, this situation at Traeger was brewing, but I grew up, just a bit of my backstory, because it'll lend itself to kind of why I chose. I grew up in a very healthcare oriented family where there was all this family inertia to be a doctor or a dentist. So I kind of grew up in it, and I saw the clinician also meets kind of business person, like not an easy thing, a 24/7 job where you wear multiple hats. That's what I grew up in, and that's all the way until right before I graduated. I thought I was gonna be a doctor. I was maybe a MCAT or a DAT score away and one prereq away from, this is what you do when you're in my family. And luckily, and you guys know me, like I am not surgical. I do not work in micromillimeter space. It's just not. So I made this courageous decision to go away, but it was kind of regrettably so, because I love healthcare. I love private business, good old fashioned private healthcare, America. And so when I was at McKinsey, now fast forward, and I'm serving public healthcare companies in these big transactions and doing other just blockbuster deals, loving it. But all my old network, who are all dentists and doctors and all classmates in my prereqs, are all calling me like, dude, you do M&A for a living. Have you not seen all the consolidation that's happening in healthcare? And I'm like, well, and so I started kind of getting exposed, which is fun because I love the industry. And I've got people, how do I grow my practice? Hey, someone wants to buy my practice. Is that a good idea? Hey, someone bought my practice. It's not going well. I feel like I made the biggest mistake of my life. So I'm kind of now doing this on the side. So I'm gone Monday to Thursday doing my day job. And now I'm like consulting with all these physicians. And my wife's kind of rightfully so, sweetheart, if you're listening. Hey, dude, you got to choose. You got to choose. Is it McKinsey partnership, or like, what else do you want to do? And to totally jump into, all right, I'm going to go build a holding company. We're going to do micro PE. I had this opportunity with Traeger that was like, I could leave and do both. And you know what? It's kind of, neither is necessarily safe, but like two things I really want to explore. I'll go and do both. And I really just had this thought of like, I do M&A for a living. I'm looking at all this consolidation, and this isn't a knock on anybody else, but I think that we could do this better. And so those were like the gentle nudges where I was like, you know what, I'm going to leave and do both. And then, as the Traeger situation, because of the down year and everything, was not going to be able to be fueled like we thought, at some point I was like, all right, we're all in. And at that point, since I'd already been running it on the side, we'd gotten all the product market fit validation that we like had something that was differentiated. It was going really well, that I was like, I don't need any more evidence. We could do this and we could make this thing big. I've seen it. So I don't know, there's probably some that are like, oh, you took this big risk and just cut everything else off and dove in. Like, we inched into it. And when I knew it was taking off, it was like, all right, this is where I'm throwing all my eggs in.
And you guys have been a rocket ship. When did you start?
Our first acquisition was October of last year, or of 22, sorry. And now fast forward, we're closing on our 7th practice. I consult with another 5 to 7, so I don't own those, but I'm still quite involved in their success. And we've got another, big tranche that will probably close first and second quarter of this year. So we are growing, quickly. I'd be remiss in not saying like it's been awesome to have like great support, including lenders who believe in us, including, attorneys who believe in us and CPAs, and obviously my team and the doctors that could say, I could go and join this other very well-known group that's been around for 10 years that has 70 practices, or, Cole, I could take a chance on you guys who are just starting out at the promise of growth and that you'd take care of us. So we've been very fortunate, a lot of fast growth, but I think it's been a healthy clip, not too fast or slow.
Follow-up question on that. You about a minute ago, you said that you got to a point where you had, you're confident, and I'm just paraphrasing, but you're confident in the product market fit and how you differentiated from these other ones. So if there's a doctor listening to this, how does your company differentiate, and how, why should they choose you versus another DSO or roll-up company?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. One is, I don't know if we would be for every doctor or dentist. There may be some that are better suited for maybe more of a classic, call it DSO or a classic group. For us, the space that we've decided to play is, what I saw is in the marketplace, there were 2 options for a doctor or a dentist, or 3 maybe. I can either close my doors. I don't have a succession plan, and I don't have a son or a daughter to leave this thing to. I can either close my doors. Nobody wants to do that. Number 2 is I can sell to someone I know, an individual, and I know that they will come and I trust that they'll really treat my staff and my patients super well because I know them, but I know I'm going to leave a lot of money on the table because an independent one-to-one buy, you just have to pull off a bunch, right, to make that work. Or I can sell to a large group, and there's obviously more financial benefit, and there's community, and there's some things, but it's part of a large group, and I may really feel like I'm one of 100, and I kind of get lost in the masses. Those last 2 options are really like the choices that I think a lot of doctors are facing. And when everybody around you's feeling the consolidation, even if you weren't thinking about selling, you are now. Hey, holy crap! Like, what's my plan? Yeah. And so I can either sell to a friend and leave a lot on the table, or I can in some cases kind of sell out or sell to a group. And we tried to come and kind of squeeze in as a 3rd option in the marketplace. So this is what I'd say to doctors, like, hey, we are a group. We are aggregating. And so we are trying to borrow some of the things from the large group world that are attractive to dentists. You are going to get community. You are going to get some degree of support. You are going to get some economies of scale. Most likely, there's going to be an event sometime down the road that you'll get to participate in and have a nice little kind of financial return. So like we're bringing some of that. However, we've seen kind of large group gone bad. And so we're going to also try to bring some of the intimacy and some of the touch and feel and an over-index on culture that you get from an independent buyer, and we're going to show up for you that way. And if someone is listening, they'd say, well, that may mean then that you can't have 80 practices. And it's like, you're probably right. Because how could you possibly deliver that if you had so many that there just wasn't enough time or calories? And for us, we're saying, that's okay. I don't know if it's 20. Like, we don't have a number. We don't have a time horizon right now. It has been, as long as we can deliver for our doctors, we'll keep going. And if some point we hit this, like, you know what, now we can't be, that's probably when we do need a PE partner or something, or need to pivot. But we're going to show up that way so that they don't end up having the same kind of quintessential experience that sometimes you get in a large group. And so anyway, that is kind of what you're going to get. But I think the biggest difference is most large groups are first aggregators and then second everything else. Mm-hmm. And we claim to be and have kind of lived up to it thus far. Knock on wood, we can continue. But we are a value-based firm. So we are enabling value in the practice itself. Like that is our highest priority first, and then we're aggregating second. And so we very conspicuously are a value creation, a value-based enabler organization. That's why I don't typically say we're a DSO, mm-hmm. because we are coaches and enablers. And so we're not going to a doctor and saying, hey, just come in with us. We're going to pay you a premium to come in. Just kind of hold your breath until we get to this next event. And you get to be part of this big thing, though that mm-hmm. still could happen. We're saying like, hey, if you still want to roll up your sleeves and you know there's more in your practice and you want to help us realize that, and by the way, maybe some of this other happens down the road, that we're your group, because what we know is if there's potential in there, that should all be realized. You deserve to see it be realized, and then the rest will take care of itself. But I mean, even if you kind of look at how we do things, it is not just smoke and mirrors. If you look at our team and our org structure versus another large group, for example, another large group may have an M&A team that has 95% of their people and their money and their time. That's the allocation, 90-10 maybe. Or maybe it's 50 there, 50 support, and then or 40 support, and then the rest is kind of growth per practice. And ours is very proportionate. Like we have someone, all his job is value creation. That practice is here. It can be here. So anyway, that would be the pitch I'd say to doctors is, hey, you may still opt for one of the other options, and that totally may be the case. But if what you know is there's more in your practice, you do want some of the strength of the community, but you want someone who's going to come in and be just utterly value focused, I think we're your group.
How awesome would that be to have somebody for every company that, hey, you have this consultant that is now tied to the outcome and their only job is to make you more successful?
Something that I'm noticing while you're saying that is we've had multiple people here that are entrepreneurs or sales leaders, and not everyone talks about their business with the level of excitement and passion, and you're almost like your eyes are shining when you're talking about this thing that you're building. And I'm also reflecting to what you said when you were a consultant, that was not your thing. So I just want to know from you, is that a reality? Are you how like you look so passionate about what you do? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it comes from growing up kind of around healthcare. When you know that what you do matters because you've kind of seen the opposite. I mean, think about a dentist. I'll just give you a day in the life of a dentist. They come out of at least the baby boomer generation. There's hundreds of thousands of people that are going to retire in the next 5 years that don't have a plan. Mm-hmm. They don't have a succession plan. And their whole life's work of being a public servant, like giving so much to the community, right? Quality of care. But they are also a 24/7, they were an entrepreneur at one point. They are a 24/7, running a business and managing people. And then they're also a clinician. It's a tough plight. I don't think people recognize like how hard it is when you're kind of on your own, very lonely job. So part of why I am so passionate is because I kind of grew up seeing geez, that is like a thing. And we thought, you know what, we could help. Like, how could you share the load? How could you make sure that the potential they know is in there is realized? And then you're actually supporting these people, and they're like, I got a text this last weekend from one of our doctors that like word for word, and this isn't us saying that we're perfect. This is an example of some evidence that we're at least doing one of 10 things right. So I don't mean to come across arrogant, but he's like, I haven't had this much fun in dentistry for 17 years. And it's like, you know what,
That is so
if that's what we're doing, then let's keep doing it. And it was a little bit different because in my former life, the energy and excitement I got was still enabling people, just public companies. But it was like, the one deal I worked on, it was a $60 billion merger. And I'm kind of reading it in the Wall Street paper going like, hey, this is kind of cool. Like, I get to be a part of this. Like, Dad, look how cool this is. And I am supporting people who, like, because of my support or like getting a raise or got recognized for playing an instrument, like a lot of that same like enabling people was in there. But that public company is going to live on with or without me, and they're going to be just fine. But now, like, I've really kind of pulled it to like, a single dentist or a single healthcare provider who owns their business. And it's not just this was really nice now. Like, this actually could be the difference between their practice being what it is now to built to last, and it's still rocking and rolling for 30 years. And when that dentist drives by, 3 decades from now and it's no longer practicing, they play golf every day, but they still see like their institution like healthy, and they feel this sense of like pride. It was just like, I think I could have much more impact doing that.
I love that. And I'm sitting here, and again, we've talked to multiple people. Not everyone has that passion. So if I'm a PE, and I come to invest, that's what I'm looking for, that passion, and your eyes are shining. And so I'm no doubt that you guys are going to continue to skyrocket.
Thank you.
Great job, man.
I remember when I interviewed, I talked to Tony Horsley afterwards. He's been a mentor, and I said, man, Tony, you'd be blown away by this guy. Like, I thought all the people that graduate from Columbia and then go to work for McKinsey are just these quants, like hyper bright, but like maybe they're missing something on the social side because they're ultra smart. Mm-hmm. And this guy's not that way at all. Like, he's unbelievably bright, but like, I'm intimidated to talk to him, man. Like, he's so collected, so emotionally
We were
mature.
talking about that before you came.
And Tony's like, yeah, all the guys that are customer facing are going to be like that because they have to be able to close the deal. So I'm curious, and our friendship has been awesome. Like, it's super fun to be around. I'm curious if somebody was interested in going to do this. Maybe it's not in dentistry, maybe it's optometry, mm-hmm. or a different place. If you could kind of talk about the skill sets needed, whether it's in-depth M&A experience, which obviously they need P&Ls and cash flows and all of that, or if it's personality, like what's their bedside manner equivalent in business or negotiation skills, like what would be your rap sheet for the perfect person to go about doing this?
Yeah, great question. So I do think if someone wanted to do this, and I think we will do this far broader than dentistry. Like, there are so many industries and we've had so many overtures of people like, hey, why aren't you doing this in PT? Why aren't you doing this in trucking? And it's like, well, that could be interesting. But if someone was getting into this, I do think that you've got to have at least some kind of base or have somebody on the team, some capability of M&A. You've got to be able to source deals, and you've got to be able to make assessments of, does this deal further enable like our strategy in an inorganic programmatic acquisition type of way. And so that is like, you got to know the financials, and you got to know like if we purchase, what does this look like from a monthly debt service, from all those things. I think you have to have some of that. And thank goodness that was my training at McKinsey, was to do all that stuff.
What was a typical day? I know it's a quick insert. What does a typical day, Monday through Thursday, look like at McKinsey?
Yeah, so I would get on a plane either Sunday evening. So I had one of my engagements was in London, so I'd get on a flight Sunday evening, or early Monday morning, and you'd have your bag packed. You'd go straight to the client site. And they'd usually have a war room for you. It was your place to squat. You'd set your stuff, and then you'd get right into it. So you'd work Monday, come back Tuesday, work, come back Wednesday, work, Thursday, come back and work, and then you're off to the airport. You catch your ride home, or catch your flight home. And Friday, you're kind of trying to recuperate a bit, but also working on maybe some client work, but some other firm initiatives that you're a part of. And I mean, just trying to get your feet back underneath you, because on Monday you're going to do it all over again.
So that level of M&A experience, you'd say, is required to go, or very, very, is a big asset in doing this.
I think so. I mean, I don't mean to sound any which way, but I do think that our group, our company is better because I know M&A. Like, I know how to source deals. I know how to integrate. I don't think you necessarily need to have that level. I mean, because McKinsey, merger and acquisition, that whole sub-business within McKinsey was robust. And I don't think you have to have that, but you've got to at least have some experience being able to kind of do the nuts and bolts of, like, how do I acquire? So you've got to have that. And then, 2 of 3 is fundraising. Like any entrepreneur knows, sucks. It sucks, but like, that's what you're doing. Like, you have to have dry powder to go, and whether you're going bank or equity, like, you have to go get it somewhere. And that is a lot of door knocking. It's a lot of pitching. It's a lot of kind of selling your story. And so that, like, you've got to be ready to fundraise. You're going to have to wear that hat. And unless you get really lucky and maybe land some kind of finance partner early in the process, you're going to be funding for a long time. So that's number 2. And then number 3, which I think is the most important, is I don't know if you'd call it personality, but it is all the intangibles. It's culture times 10. Because you're going to look some people in the eye and say, choose us for this reason. And you're also going to look them in the eye, shoulders back, kind of head up, and say, if you join us, we're going to take care of you, because this is how we do things around here. And then there's this, if you're the founder of any company, but certainly in a situation like this, like, you establish the culture that trickle downs into already existing businesses that have their own culture. And it's your job to massage and roll out thoughtfully. And you have a lot of hard conversations. And so being diplomatic and winning over hearts and minds, even with some of our team, one of the leaps of faith for me that I still struggle with is it was really hard for me to feel comfortable sending anybody but me into an office if I wasn't there, which sounds terrible. And I'm not doing that, but it was like, it's not even about what you do, but it is just as important as how you do it, because that office is the jury's out. Cole, the Valere team, like, are they here for us? Are they gonna show up? Do they have our best intention? Do they understand that this practice is not the same as a dental office in Tampa, Florida, as it is in Erie, Pennsylvania, as it is in Vegas? Like, do they get that? And so you have to have someone who is very good at what they do, but who's been through it enough that they can, like, deliver with empathy. They can articulate, why all of the things. And just the culture, like, everybody forgets about culture. But even before I left the firm at McKinsey, we did a study with CEOs that had gone through a transaction. And if that transaction either failed, or was it just merely, it did not live up to the strategic intent that spurred the buy, 9 out of 10 times the CEO or the C-suite members would attribute that failure to, we underestimated culture. It was not the financials. It wasn't that the deal was wrong. It was, we totally didn't realize that there's an organization that has to be catered to. It's very interesting. So I think you have to be ready for that. It's not always fun, but it's part of it.
A question that's a little bit of a pivot question. I think somebody could look at you and say, man, here's a guy who owns a business that's doing millions and millions in revenue now, has the family, has everything put together, but you're laughing because this is the second time we're on a podcast where all of our dads have passed. I'm wondering if you could, that's unfair of me to just bring that out of the blue. But I wonder if you could talk to how you've leveraged your hardships into your successes. And you can go as deep as you'd like into those, or as surface level as you'd like.
Yeah. You know what? So I did lose my dad this last year, September, and 2 years prior to that same month, I lost my mom. And so it has been kind of those are the kinds of experiences that really make you like step back and go like, what am I doing? And is it important? Is it the right, am I prioritizing all the right things? I don't know. I guess what I learned fairly early on, and I'll be the first to say, I don't think I've had it harder than the next guy. That's not what I mean. But like growing up, there were, you've got things that you go through. And I think one of the things I believe in more than anything now is that like the purpose of our existence, however you're talking about it, the purpose that we get from the universe or whatever is like how like tough and resilient can you be? Because it's like not a matter of if or when. You and I had this conversation, I think the other day. It's like if you knew what was coming, would you still, if you could opt out, would you stay the course or would you opt? Like it's coming, but if you can handle it and you can get underneath it and you can, I don't know, make something good of it, and then there's a lot of people around you that are watching that take the same kind of like, all right, well, if that guy can do it, like I can also deal with my stuff. And even more than I can deal with my stuff, I can still build despite all of these blocks that have kind of tumbled. I don't really know why, but it's incredibly motivating to me. That it's like, you know what, I'm not the first person who's lost their parents. It sucks, it's been super hard. But now, like, I really feel like I can empathize with people like crazy. And there's other people out there that have said, you know what, yeah, this is terrible, but like I'm going to still like find meaning and figure it out. And I'm going to be one freaking tough person because I have to be. From a personal perspective, I got a wife at home. I've got 3 kids. Like I got to, you show up and you find a lot of, I'd say, fulfillment in showing up for your family and your friends that way. And then professionally now, when you've got now, I don't know, 70 to 90 employees who also have all of their own stuff going on. We have deaths that happen across the portfolio or divorces or all these things. And you can't necessarily look them in the eye and say, hey, I know what you're going through, but you can go, hey, dude, like I'll stand in the fire with you, but we'll figure this out, and like genuinely mean it. So I don't know. Sorry, I don't know if that perfectly answers, but like the way that I've used it is just like this fuel of like, you know what, like you'll be better because of it. Not that you'd if you could go back, you wouldn't, make it different, because I would, but I don't know. Now you've got like this real strong sense of purpose because you've just been through something that's made you look at life a little differently.
You said you have a wife, kids, and you need to show up for them. I think your level of show up is not what I think when people hear you, I need to show up, it's different. Like you're up at 4 a.m. this morning. you're grinding every day. So if you could talk a little to that, like what is it?
Yeah.
And this is a hard question to ask. We just love the raw answer. It's not going to come across as arrogant. You never come across that way. I think people are just curious, like, what is making you tick and operate on this high of a level in spite of or because of, like, we just everything you're going through. So could you talk to that?
Yeah. Well, so the first thing that I'd tell you is, I will admit I am a workaholic. I absolutely love to work. I don't even know what else to say. I hope this I hope this is a safe space, but like I do love it, and maybe part of that's because I love what I do. But every day it feels like we're building something, and so like I don't really need this motivation to be like, oh, I've got to show up to work today. It's like, you know what? I could be doing 12 different things. For right or for wrong, this is what I chose to do. And if you're gonna play in the space, like you might as well bring your very best. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's just a little bit of like the way that I'm wired, to the detriment of the kind of balance that you'd want. So when I talk about showing up, a lot of times it isn't like the putting in more calories or more time. It's that my wife, thank goodness, is like, hey, I need you to show up with that same kind of energy and fervor and all the things, because I can get distracted and I'm like heads down with work. And the reality is like that I may have doctors and all these other people that depend on me, but like my kids at least need like the very best version of dad. And I just have, it requires so much discipline for me to make sure that I'm compartmentalizing my life so that everybody's getting my best. So, you know, as that now trickles into like my day to day, part of the reason I go to, you know, I get up at 4 is because it is like a chunk of time where I, you know, like any entrepreneur, you never get your to-do list done. You never can. And, but it's like from 4 to 5:30, there's nobody on this earth that's bothering me to just get like ahead of the day and get all my work stuff out so that when I stroll back into the house at 5 or 5:30 and my phone is ringing like crazy and everybody like needs something, I at least feel like, you know what, like I've pushed as far as I can with work. Now I can, for a hot second, just like turn this off and give my kids my very best. And then kids go to sleep and my wife is amazing. It's like I'm right back to it. We have some time, but then, you know, you're back to the grind. But if you're going to have a successful company, like I don't know how else you do it. It's like all the time, and you either have to be sick enough to sign up for it, or I don't know, you get lucky. I'm not sure, but
I love that. You mentioned a few times, Cole. I think it's the 3rd or 4th time you mentioned your wife, and I love asking this question. What role has your wife? You're obviously extremely successful. What role has your wife played in your success?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, one that I've talked about, she just grounds me like crazy. She is not afraid to give me the kind of feedback that stings sometimes, but you know you need to hear it, right? It's like, hey, priorities. And part of it is because she doesn't care about any of this stuff. I could come and say something like, hey, you know, we just closed on this practice and we won it over 4 other groups, or guess how much our portfolio is valued at today. And she'll be the first to say, hey, that's awesome. Hey, you still haven't mowed the lawn. Like, are you going to get back out there and get it done, or what? And I shouldn't say she doesn't care, but she has such a rich perspective on all the things that matter that she grounds me incredibly. And I'd be that guy that would be, I don't know, I'd have a small apartment in New York City and would work 24/7 if I didn't have like people that were like really stop, pause, step back, and what are all the things you want in life? Because I'm kind of one of those people that's like, when I'm in, it's like laser focus, I'm in, I'm not going to stop until it's like pushed across. So that's number one. She anchors me like crazy. The other though, and this is like advice I'd give to anyone who's dating that my wife's done for me. She's been so supportive and not passive. It's not like she doesn't care. She doesn't not ask me questions, but she's been able to see this long game that I've had in my mind and really been able to sacrifice a ton and like be in my corner, even when it's been ridiculously hard. I mean, so 2 of my 3 kids were born in New York City while I'm at McKinsey traveling Monday through Thursday, and she's at home all by herself with kids, just keeping everything together, and she'd never complain about it. She'd never complain about it. And when our kids talk about work, she does not talk about work in a bad way. Dad's hustling for us and he loves what he does. Like, she just has been so supportive. And it's been everywhere. We leave, we go to New York City for school, and she's my sugar mama while I'm at a very expensive business school and can't work, to make sure that we can do it. Now I'm at this job where I travel all the time, and she can kind of see what that means. And now I give up every single night to dentists that I want to talk to, and they want to talk to me when we could be sitting and watching Netflix, but she gets it. So anyway, she's just, I feel like I kind of feel like I could do anything because I've got like her set of sponsorship, you know? Anyway, she understands, so she's been super supportive.
I love that you said, I feel like I can do anything because I have her. That's amazing. Yeah. I love that.
Wouldn't you say that to like a young person? Like, hey, what should I be looking for in a spouse? Like, go find somebody that it has very high expectations. They're not going to let you off the hook. They're going to let you hear it when you need it, but they are going to make you feel like you can do anything. And suddenly now you're not afraid to like just go after everything you want because
Yes.
you've got somebody.
I often have I've had this conversation actually a few times with friends where they say, "Oh, there's this person in my job that he clocked it's obvious that it's the middle of the day. There's work in the queue, but he leaves or she leaves, and the work's being undone, and or this person called in and said she was sick or he was sick, and they were actually not." And my immediate thought is always, my wife would never let me lie to get off of work. Or if my wife saw that I just started, it's middle of the day, I'm supposed to be working, and I'm walking around, she'd be like, "What are you doing?" So my mind goes there. Yes, someone that will keep you in check, and then have high expectations for you and have the courage to challenge you. Hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, I love that.
Totally stand by that.
I have one more question for you.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to share. We'd love to hear it. What advice would you give to, in your 20s, 21 to 29-year-old Cole?
Oh, man. I mean, I think I'd very much say, like, now's the time to invest in yourself. Invest in yourself, because especially like in this day and age, like people, some people get a lot of quick money, and you're looking at friends that are buying houses and cars, and you're, now hundreds of thousands in debt at business school or whatever it is. But when you get on the other side of all that investment, you're incredibly marketable. And it's not smoke and mirrors. Like, you know what you know. And you have these experiences that now you could go, and it's helped me, like the 20 through 30 of me really going, like, I need all these things in place so that someday, like, I can do these bigger things. Having these things now has just opened a tremendous amount of doors for me. Sometimes it's, fundraising, I walk into a bank or whatever, and it's like, oh, you know what? Like, this guy, he's kind of done these things. You know what? Maybe he actually does know what he's doing. Maybe we should lend to this guy. So I just would say it's like invest in yourself right now, because you're going to be working for the rest of your life. And what you really want is to be so good and dangerous at the few things that you've really doubled down on that you just feel like extreme confidence that you can deliver. And like you do it as good or better than anybody else. And then it's like, and then go find something that like matches those things that you're incredibly passionate about, because that's when you're not going to care if you wake up at 4 a.m. You're going to go, hey, I kind of feel jazzed today. Like, I want to be the guy. I want to be like the best, like roll up or micro PE guy out there. I probably won't be, but I'm going to shoot every day. I want someone to write an HBR article about how we did things different, because I am now leveraging like the few things that I love to do that I feel like I'm like really good at. And as a result, like, we're going to actually do a lot of good, and I'll be super fulfilled. So, and then maybe earlier what we were talking about, and then get ready, because all this bad stuff's going to happen, and you just got to be ready to deflect and journey on, but it's going to make you tougher.
Love it. Anything else?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the only other thing I'd say is just, I think all of us are intuitive people. And,
all of us in this room, or all humanity?
I think humanity is super intuitive if you're like in touch and you're thoughtful. Definitely this group though. Since so much of this is a growth podcast, and there's entrepreneurs and there's people that are either trying to build up enough courage or like the right plan and something that they want, like your internal clock, like really I think tells you a lot. And so the only last thing I'd say is like, if you've kind of put in the time to like really understand like what you want to do, how you want to do it, if you want to do it differently, how's that? We're all so intuitive that at some point you'll know like when it's time to pull the trigger. And when it is, it's like, what else are you going to do? Like You should dive in and be all in. Because I don't know, I think there are a lot of people that will get to the end of their career and look back and go, man, I had a few opportunities to take a shot and I didn't do it. And my gut was screaming during that interval of my life, like that was my time. And it doesn't mean you have to go quit your job and make your family suffer and all the things. But like, anyway, you should be very analytical and thoughtful and methodical and have a plan. Like there's no excuse to not have those things. But when you do have all those things and like you're something inside, it's like, all right, this is what you should be doing. Just freaking pull the trigger.
Amazing. I need to ask one more question, if that's okay. I was sitting here, I was like, can I leave without asking this question? No, I can't. So there's a lot of content out there from successful entrepreneurs or people that have online businesses and online platforms that say to young kids, don't go to college. Just go start your business. You went to college, you went to an Ivy League, you got, to business school at an Ivy League, and you ended up where you are as an entrepreneur. What's your take on that and advice to young kids?
I think it depends on what you want to be when you grow up. I think it has to, like, you need to be able to articulate, like, very practically, like, why would this investment in my time be better than anything else I could be doing? So I could only answer that question for me, and that was when I realized I wasn't going to be a doctor. When I had that moment, it was kind of scary because I was like almost graduated. Luckily, I was taking prereqs for med school while getting my business degree, only because people were like, you should learn how to run a successful practice, not bad like I did it, all my network. But at some point, I was 100% certain that I wanted to go and be a management consultant at a global firm. And I actually met someone at McKinsey, and I just thought, like, holy crap, like that skill set is so coveted. Like, I want to solve those kind of problems. But for me, when that was done, it was, all right, how do you get into a firm like McKinsey & Company? But even before then, it was like, well, I need to go to a top 7 business school. How do you even get into a top 7 business school? And so it was like, end was set, and then I just back solved all the way to where I was. And I mean, look, undergrad, I was a student athlete. I was almost a 4.0 student. I had these things. I applied for McKinsey and an analyst, like a pre-business school role. I didn't even get a call back. Like, not a reply email, no nothing. And so it was like, you know what? Like, the only way for me to get in after asking a million people was I need to get some Fortune 10 experience, which I got, which is going to get me into a really good business school where McKinsey & Company happens to every quarter be on campus doing their thing. And I need to get myself there and then be ready to get a job. And so I'm at business school. I go through McKinsey interview process first time. I don't get the job. So now I've struck out twice. And then third time around, it happens, and I go and I do really well. But like, there is no way in hell, I was going to get into McKinsey & Company by saying, like, you know what, I don't really care about my grades at college. And for me, I don't really care about business school. I'm going to just try and wing it. I just didn't have enough things that set me apart without academia, with those accolades. I mean, I would have been in no callback zone for the rest of my life. Now, that's only important because that was the path that I wanted. So that's what I'd say to people is, like, just, you need to figure out what it is you want, and then you can back solve. And I think you'll know very clearly, is graduate school a piece, an enabler that gets you there faster or at all or not? If the answer is no, but you feel like you're just doing it for no reason, maybe you don't. Maybe, you go do something else. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, like, it is a nice path to getting to where they want to be. For others, maybe not so much.
I love that. There was one thing that you said that actually resonated with me, is you actually you interacted with people that were doing that. So you hung out with people that were doing what you thought you wanted, and then that's how you found out, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's an important thing for, if people are in school or they're trying to figure it out, also spend time, hang out with the people that are doing that which you think you want to do. And if you like that, if you like their lifestyle and their routine, then it's another confirmation, right?
I totally endorse that. Go try it on. It's not wasted time. I'll tell you right now, I know some people that would go work for free for a summer and do something really hard and put in a ton of hours for free just to see. I had a friend who went and clerked for a judge in New York City. He could have been doing a million other things. He could have went and, you know, made a ton of money doing other things, but it was like, you know what? I got to try this on. So anyway, I couldn't agree more. Like, go and talk to as many people as you can. Go and shadow and do all the things. And then when you know, like, you know, your spidey senses will start to tell you, like, if this was my life, like, and my biggest litmus test for anything, maybe this is the most important thing I would say on this podcast, whatever you're doing, if you say it out loud and you feel your body just produce energy and like pride, that's when you know, like, whatever it is you're doing is a good thing. If you're sheepish about it, if you can't you like fumble over it, you know, it's like you should ask yourself, like, if my body's not like, if I'm not feeling like extreme energy about this thing, like, there's a chance that it's wrong. But when you finally nail it, and then you're like telling people what it is you do for a living or whatever, and you just like you're just feeling it. Like, I actually am proud to like shout this thing from the rooftops. That's the secret sauce right there. It's hard to find, but
I love that. That's a perfect place to end.
It's a wrap. Thanks, Cole.
thank you guys.
Appreciate you.